For more on the Hong Kong unrest and its wide-ranging impact on the city's economy, my colleague Callebs talked to Yan Wang. He's the chief emerging markets and China strategist at Alpine Macro. And John asked him how the protests had been dragging down Hong Kong's economy.
Well, I would say the conditions are pretty bad for now because, as you can imagine, Hong Kong is a very open economy. So it's very dependent on intertransactions with the rest of the world. So the unrest that has lasted for almost 6 months now, that clearly has cut tourism by almost by half. And also, if you look at tourism arrivals, dropped by 40-some percent. Retail sales have dropped by 20-30%. So those numbers are actually on par to some of the worst recessions in Hong Kong history. So I think the recession that Hong Kong is in today is as bad as the one that we had in 2003 after the SARS crisis, and also in 2008, 2009 after the global financial crisis. So I think the conditions are fairly bad.
Yeah, you led me right into my next question. I mean, it's pushed Hong Kong into its first recession since 2009, and it's impossible to predict when social order will be restored. So what is at stake and what can be done, especially to kind of prop up the financial stability of the region?
Right. I think for now, if we want to point out some bright spots in Hong Kong now, the financial stability is actually one of the bright spots that we can see in Hong Kong today. Even though we have this kind of massive collapse in retail sales, tourism spending, but if you look at the financial system in Hong Kong, has been fairly stable. If you look at this is actually very different from, let's say, during the Asian crisis in '97, '98. Back then, if we remember, interest rates in Hong Kong spiked up dramatically. The currency was under speculative attack, and the stock market crashed. And if the housing market dropped by, home prices dropped by 70% from 1997 to 2003. So if we compare the current conditions with the really extreme recessions that we had in 1997, 98 during the Asian financial crisis. So Hong Kong conditions today are not as bad. So to me, this is actually a bright spot that we can, it means that the Hong Kong financial system is fairly resilient. And this is actually offers the stability for both for the local Hong Kong economy, but also for the broader Asia region.
Yeah, you sound overall positive looking toward the future, but the number of people passing through the Hong Kong airport was down more than 16% in November. What specific sectors are being hit hardest? Clearly tourism, some service industries, but what about the bellwethers, the financials? And you talked about the impact on China as well.
Don't forget, Hong Kong itself is a financial hub. Financial industry is the most important industry for Hong Kong. So as long as the financial system doesn't have a major systemic problem, then I think the Hong Kong economy itself will be able to survive this recession. So in terms of the impact on China, I think the size of the Hong Kong economy is tiny, right? So compared with China. So the near-term impact should be fairly small. The longer-term impact, I think we need to watch. For example, China has been trying to build Hong Kong as an offshore RMB center. In China, Hong Kong has been the financial hub for China, for Chinese companies to raise capital to do financial transactions. So I think that those are the things that will be more important for China over the long run.
Absolutely. Looking at 2020, what do you think the financial sector is hoping for? And do you think there's any reason to believe that a neutral entity, perhaps in another nation, can step in and try to broker an agreement to end the demonstrations and restore order?
Well, I think we can speculate on those things, but I think deep down we know unrest like this, there has to be some catalyst, but it also reflects some really deep economic problems in Hong Kong. So I think going forward, the government has to address all these issues, all these deeply rooted social and economic issues for the economy to come back together and to move on. So I think the government will do a lot of things to address the social divide, the wealth gap, the housing, the unaffordability of the housing market. So I think those things the government has to do, and I think it will take a very long time to come back. So I think the best that we can hope for Hong Kong is the social unrest will begin to stabilize, to diminish, and then allow the economy to gradually recover. But then the deeply embedded social problems, I think that will take much longer to address.